Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to untangle a multi-million-dollar tax question that all comes down to a surprisingly philosophical problem. Can a company, a legal entity with no hands, no soul, actually create a painting?
You know, it sounds like a riddle you'd get in an art class, doesn't it? But trust me, the answer to this question had some very real and very expensive financial consequences for one particular European art gallery. This is really a story about what happens when the fluid, creative world of art collides with the pretty rigid rules of commerce. And the law is kind of left scrambling to catch up. All right, so let's set the scene here. Every good story needs its key players and a point of conflict. And in our case, it all starts with a gallery, an artist, and a tax bill that absolutely nobody saw coming. So the gallery is Galerie Karsten Greve, a big name in France. They acquired some paintings by the artist Gideon Rubin. But, and this is the crucial detail, they didn't buy the art from him directly. They bought it from a UK-based company that he co-owned. And that tiny little distinction, yeah, that's where all the trouble started. Let's wind the clock back to 2014. The French tax authorities are doing a pretty routine audit of the gallery's books, and they flag a transaction. They see something that they really, really do not like. Turns out the gallery had used a special tax rule called the margin scheme. The tax authority said, nope, can't do that, and sent them a bill for additional VAT. And that one disagreement kicked off a legal battle that would drag on for years. So you have to ask, what is this margin scheme that was worth fighting over all the way to the EU's highest court? Okay, let's get into it. Section 2, the margin scheme. This special VAT rule is right at the heart of this entire dispute. So think of it like this. It's a tax break for people who sell things like art and antiques. It's designed to stop the same item from getting fully taxed again and again as it re-enters the market. So for dealers, it's a huge benefit. The process itself is brilliantly simple. A gallery buys a painting, they sell it for a higher price, and then they only pay VAT on their profit, not the whole selling price. That tiny difference in the calculation can mean a massive difference in the final tax bill. So now you can see exactly why the gallery was willing to fight so hard for it. So if the margin scheme is so great, why couldn't the gallery use it? The entire legal battle, the years of appeals, it all came down to how you interpret one single word: creator. You had two very different arguments. The French tax authority took a super literal view. They said, look, the law says the scheme is for art supplied by the creator. A company is just a legal thing. It's not an artist. It can't hold a paintbrush. But the gallery argued back, saying that ignores how the modern art market actually works. The artist uses his company to sell his art. The supply still comes from him, the creator. Well, the French Court of Appeal came down on the side of the tax authorities. They ruled that the company, as a legal person, could not be seen as the creator. Ouch. That was a direct hit, and it basically left the gallery at a dead end in the French courts. They really only had one option left. Facing that defeat, they appealed to France's highest court. And that court did something really interesting. They kicked the question over to the Court of Justice of the European Union, the CJEU, to get a final ruling for the whole EU. And this, my friends, is where the story takes a very clever turn. See, the court didn't just answer the question they were asked. So remember, this was the question the French court sent up. Can a company be considered the creator of a painting for tax purposes? Seems pretty simple, right? But the EU court was smart. Instead of getting bogged down in that whole philosophical debate about what a creator is, they just reframed the question entirely. They decided the real question was this: does a supply of art from the creator, who is just acting through his company, fall under the margin scheme? It was a brilliant shift from a philosophical question to a practical, economic one. And the final verdict? A clear yes, but with two common-sense conditions. One, the supply by the company has to be attributable to the creator, which, is pretty much assumed when an artist sets up a company to sell their own work. And two, the sale has to be the very first time the artwork is introduced onto the EU market. So yeah, the court gave a clear yes, but with guardrails that protect the spirit of the law without punishing modern businesses. So what's the big picture here? What does this ruling actually mean for the art world, beyond this one gallery and this one tax bill? Well, the court's decision really went back to the whole point of the EU's VAT system in the first place. They looked past the literal words on the page to the actual goals of the law, which is all about making sure there's a fair and competitive market. Ultimately, the decision upheld three really important principles. First, fiscal neutrality. That just means artists get taxed the same whether they operate as an individual or through a company. Second, no distorted competition. It creates a level playing field for all galleries no matter how the artist's business is set up. And finally, it actually promotes the art market by making the rules clear and modern. And this ruling does one more thing. It avoids a ton of extra paperwork. It creates a simple test instead of forcing everyone to do complex checks on who owns what part of a company. At the end of the day, the court chose a practical solution over a bureaucratic one, which is really a win-win for businesses and tax authorities. The court's ruling definitely brings a lot of welcome clarity, but it does leave us with one last question. Has it paved the way for a fairer, more modern art market, or has it just created new, more sophisticated loopholes? That's a line the art world will probably continue to walk for a very long time.